So I'm sure you remember hearing about Sears Canada closing down a couple of years ago. This was after decades of financial success and growth. And if you were to look into why this happened, you'll find tons of articles talking about how Sears failed to adapt to the new digital age and they were stuck in the past and how they were way too late to the game with online sales. Well, personally, I disagree with that. While that may have been a factor into the demise of the company, there's something else that I believe was the main cause of Sears Canada going out of business. Now, if you look at this chart showing Sears Canada's stock price history, you'll notice a sudden dip because something happened in and around this time right here that set Sears on a future course for failure. And maybe you're wondering what happened in that time. Well, that was the time that I worked for the Sears company. And so this is the story of how I single-handedly ruined Sears Canada. Now, to explain what happened, I need to take you back to the time when I was a shipping and receiving worker on the Sears loading docks, back when I was around 17 or 18 years old. So my job was basically to receive the trailers full of merchandise, use my scanner to scan in all the products, unload the trucks, and then go into this computer system we had to make sure that everything that they shipped to us was properly scanned and received. Now, the problem with that was that a lot of times items would get missed. These trucks were full of tons of merchandise, so when things got missed, we would do our best to go through the merchandise and try and find the item we missed and scan it into the system. But almost every trailer, there was always a couple of boxes that got missed, and we just couldn't find them. And I noticed that all the managers would do is just manually overwrite it in the system and say, oh well, whatever, we missed one, no big deal. And I thought, wow, that's strange how they don't really care that much if something's missing off the trailer. So that gave me an idea. You see, the trucks get dropped off into this loading bay, as you can see on the left here. Zoomed in on the right here, you can't really see it, but around here, there was this gap where the inside of the truck connected to the loading dock. It was probably an 8-inch by 8-inch square where you could easily fit things through. This is when I had the idea. If I just take small but expensive pieces of merchandise while I'm in the trailer and feed it through this hole, things like digital cameras, for example, all I would have to do is then come back in the evening when nobody's at the store, collect the goods that I dropped out, and then I could take them home and sell them or whatever I want to do with them. And because I'm the one in charge of scanning the items, it never actually enters our store's inventory because I'm the one who enters it in. And I also mentioned how if things go missing from the truck, nobody really seems to mind. You're probably wondering, well, what about the cameras? How do you not get caught doing all this stuff? Well, it just so happens that I also was good friends with the guys in receiving, and they were also young guys who were around my age. I used to hang out in the security office, and I could see all the cameras and where they were pointing. And I knew for a fact there was no cameras that pointed outside near the exact point where I could drop the merchandise. And there's also no cameras pointing inside the trailer where I could feed the merchandise through. On top of that, I could just get my other friends to work at the other Sears locations, get them in on the plan, have them do their merchandise drops, and then every night all I have to do is make my rounds, drive by each Sears location, pick up all the stuff I need, and then take off. So you're probably wondering, well, how much merchandise did you steal? James, did you steal enough merchandise that it actually had that much of a financial effect on the company that they went under from it? And the answer to that is, no, I never stole anything. I'm not a scumbag, I just have good ideas, but I never actually did any of this stuff. No, the story of how I caused Sears Canada to go under is a lot more complicated, and it's a chain of effects that all started with me being an absolutely terrible employee. When I used to work in shipping and receiving, I got almost no work done. I would spend almost all of my time eating snacks, and in most cases you could just find me wandering around the store, talking to people, and looking at merchandise and things like that. I recall one day when I stood in the electronics department and watched the movie Up from start to finish without doing any work. I just stood there holding a moving dolly so that people thought that I was doing work. But yeah, I watched the movie in its entirety on my shift. And you're probably asking yourself, how did this guy not get fired from his job then if he was so lazy? And the answer is a few things. For one, there's too many employees for them to keep track of all the time, but also I used to do these things called show jobs. Now, an example of a show job would be, for example, to clean the receiving area spotless. I do this like once every 3 weeks. So I do no work for a few weeks, and then I would pick something that's very visibly noticeable, such as clean the dock, I would sweep it, I would organize it. So when people come in and see it, it's so eye-catching. Wow, James must be such a good employee. Look at this place, it's amazing. And then it puts it in their head that I'm actually a hard worker, when in reality I'm doing nothing for weeks at a time. Now, my laziness and bad work habits didn't just affect me. It would also affect other people on the sales floor. For example, an associate would be trying to sell something, and I would show up like, hey, how's it going, you guys? Oh, you're checking out the new Kenmore stove? Ooh, I don't know. I've seen the reviews on that thing and they're not great. You might want to reconsider. I'm just looking out for you is all. Now, for some reason, after that, the company made the absolutely detrimental decision of putting me on the sales floor working in major appliances. So the major appliance department consisted of a bunch of people who were in their 50s and 60s, and then me, who was I think 19 or 20 at the time. Now, the department had a total of 9 people in it, and we worked on pure commission. So if you didn't sell something, you made no money. And this was terrible for me because I was able to justify to myself that if I wasn't selling something to somebody, then I was basically working for free. And what would happen is there'd be some days where on like a weekend, there'd be a customer coming in maybe once every 15 minutes. So if you take 15 minutes and times it by 9 people, because we took turns with customers, you had like your turn in the rotation to talk to customers and try to sell to them. So 15 minutes times 9 people is 135 minutes, which means that after you talk to a customer, if you don't sell something to them, by the time the rotation gets back to you, it could be up to 2 hours or more before you get another opportunity to sell something. And if somebody comes in and wants to buy a microwave and you make $3 commission, that's it for your turn. That's all you get. So because of this, I would constantly wander away thinking, I'm not going to stand here and work for free for the next 2 hours, standing around doing nothing, making $0. So I would go and wander and annoy other employees or go on long breaks. In fact, I remember one Saturday where we were really slow. I actually left the department and I went and saw the movie Avatar in its entirety and then came back afterwards. And you're probably thinking, well, don't the other employees get annoyed with you for disappearing like that? Well, of course not, because they're all on pure commission. So the less people there are in the department, the more opportunity they have to sell stuff and make money. So they were happy that I was gone half the time. So at this point, my behavior started to cause this store to struggle. My sales were down. I was causing other people's sales to be down. And head office guys would come in and they would wander the store and they would be talking and they would say, why is this store down so much? What is causing this store in particular to have such low sales compared to every other store? There must be something going on here, but we can't quite figure it out. Well, this continued until one day, one of Sears' biggest stockholders was sitting at home on his computer and thought to himself, I own a lot of Sears stocks. I'm gonna hop online and check out how the company's doing. I think I'll just pick a random store and check their sales figures, and that should give me an idea of how the company's doing overall. So I think I'll try this store in Cambridge, Ontario. Oh my God. What is happening here? Clearly this company is spiraling downward and I need to get out and sell my stocks before I lose everything. So this giant shareholder sold all of his stocks and got out of Sears Canada. Well, then the news got out that this big investor sold all of his Sears stocks and other investors thought, well, what does he know that we don't know? Maybe we should get out as well. So then everyone started selling their stocks. And this kept happening until nobody was invested in Sears anymore. And this all stemmed from my bad work habits and my laziness. Well, I actually quit a couple of years before the company fully went under. And I stood back and watched the company slowly announce that it was laying people off and closing locations. And I couldn't help but think to myself, is there something I could have done to prevent this from happening? This was a good company. It's so sad that it's gone now. But then I realized something. The company didn't shut down until after I stopped working there. So mathematically speaking, Sears minus me equals shutdown. So then I was able to convince myself that it wasn't really my fault that Sears shut down. And actually it appears that losing me was what caused the company to finally go under. Now you're probably asking, well, why am I making this video? Why am I telling you all of this? Well, if you happen to know any retail stores that are hiring, I would love it if you could pass my resume off. Because I am looking for work right now. So there's a copy of my resume here. Let me know if you have any contacts. I'd really appreciate it. And on top of that, I just want to thank my Patreon supporters once again. One of the benefits of supporting me on Patreon is you get to go on a lot of cool trips with me. So here is me and my supporters up in space. We went on a space trip recently and had a really good time. So if you would like to join us on these trips, I will put a link to my Patreon in the description. So thanks again for that. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.